Well, the day has finally come to give away my transport mammoth. I want to thank everybody that commented on my video. It's probably one of the most commented videos I have, and I can see why. Everybody wants the mammoth. And so, first thing I'm going to do before I get to the tier list is I'm giving this bad boy away. So, here's our winners. Congratulations to Cracked Koji. I think that's how you say that. Or maybe there's a special pronunciation for it, but you, my friend, have won the mammoth giveaway. And I want to give a congratulations to Ricardo Ramirez for winning the Panther giveaway, which basically was for the shapeshifter weapons. So, in order to claim your mounts, all you have to do is just access my island. My island is currently in Caerleon, so I mean it is limiting for you guys because you're gonna have to like go get it, even if you're like your main cities or like somewhere on the edges or something. You're gonna have to come to Caerleon to get it. So, sorry about that, but it's the easiest way for people like or YouTubers, streamers, or whatnot to give giveaways without having to, chase down people and wait for days or hours, just to meet up at some point when the timings align. So, you're gonna have to come to Caerleon, come to my island. I've given you guys access to my island, and the very left chest is the one with the mammoth, and the one just after that has the panther in it. So, come on and grab your mounts, guys. Alright, now that that's out of the way, for those who aren't interested in the tier list, you can go ahead and click off here. I will be doing more giveaways, but not for NA servers. I'm going to be waiting for EU servers, and I'll go back to doing like a weekly giveaways, just giving away whatever I can find, honestly. And I'm sure a lot of stuff at the beginning of EU server are going to be pretty pricey, so they're not going to be the craziest giveaways at first, but they're going to get pretty crazy after a while. And hopefully, the Albion devs see that I'm like, doing some content for the game, and they'll give me some codes to give away as well, which would be nice, giving away premium. Alright, let's get on over to Yield tier list. Alright. It's finally time to start this tier list. As you can see, I've already sorted out everything in order from my videos, basically. So, starting with the daggers, the crossbows, swords, bows, you can see the rest. I had to add in a couple of these because I don't know when this tier list was made, but these icons are no longer like actual weapons in the game anymore, so I replaced some of the arcane ones and I added the shapeshifter ones because that wasn't in there. Oh boy, so let's get started with the daggers. Starting off with ye old one-handed dagger. Now this one for me is going to be placed pretty low because it is quite easy to counter these. In fact, like one of the most common counters to this weapon is just to run away, because they can't hit you while you're running. Even if they sprint, they'll get maybe one hit in, but then because they're standing still when they have to hit, it'll create a gap and they can't hit you anymore. So honestly, like if you know what you're doing, you could easily counter this weapon. So when I played it, a lot of people that I was fighting knew how to counter it, so it didn't end up that high up for me. So it went up to D. Now, I already did the tier list. Like, I have it here. Let me show it. So, I already have like the tier list here on the side that I did before this. I set up everything. And, but I feel like some of the stuff I have here isn't really in the right place. Because this was like the first to go at it. And now I'm going to do more of like an explaining. And maybe I'll even change some of the decisions I had here. So, I put it in D because it's really... It has a pretty decent kill potential, but the problem is, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, a big thing you guys need to take into account is that this is a budget corrupted dungeon, so everything is in 4.1, which I mean, to be fair, you could also go tier 4 if you want to do it cheap, but this is compared to my series. So I did everything in 4.1, and most of the time I was wearing like maybe a mercenary jacket or assassin jacket or the cleric robe, like the 3 robes that I was using, and it's either scholar shoes or soldier boots mostly, and then probably hunter hood or guardian in most of my builds. But I'm gonna try and focus mostly on what the weapons are capable of, and also keeping in mind that the weapons are 4.1, so I don't have access to like Shadow's Edge. I don't have access to like the spirit charges thing. So that's why I'm placing this one-handed dagger pretty low, because if you're using in the 4.1 budget setting, you're damage output is not as great as it would be if it was in if you had like the full build. If it was a full build, then I'd probably place it at like A or B. But in the budget sense, I'm placing it at a D. Alright, moving on to the next weapon, the dagger pair. So this one was, I don't know. I placed it, originally I placed it up at A tier, but I went around and played around with it a little bit, and then I realized that if you're not, like I said before, if you were going tier 6 with Shadow's Edge and the Assassin Spirit charges, like it's a really nice weapon because you would just charge up 3 stacks, just Shadow's Edge, E, and then like maybe Assassin Jacket, just go stealth and wait for your cooldown and do it again because your E cooldown is relatively short. But since it's a 4.1 build and the only thing you have at like mobility is the dash, and you can't charge up you don't have the spirit charge thing, so you can't like charge up 3 stacks and then dash hit E. This thing also fell short, and instead of like A where I originally placed it, I'm gonna put it down here with the I don't know, E or F. I think E because it still has some potential. It has nice burst damage, but or if you went like more of a fighter build with mercenary jacket and stuff, it would still work because its E's cooldown so short and it's pretty big damage, but it would be a little bit more harder to actually do. Next up is this poor thing right here, the claws. Now, I don't know, a little bit of information is when I first started playing Albion, the first thing I got to 100 was claws. It was like my favorite weapon. Because I had a group of people that we were just ganking all the time with, and it was really useful then. But in Corrupted Dungeons, I think it just lacks damage. Now, I've seen some videos where it's like, oh, maybe they could do this, but the problem is they can pop their cleric hood while they're being hit by your E, or while you're, pinning them down and using your E, they can pop a cleric robe, or like the cleric hood, just go like ice block or something, or they just turn on their like reflect on their hunter hoods that most people are using in Corrupted Dungeons, and this weapon just becomes pretty much useless because it's predictable and they can even activate their stuff while they're being pinned down. Or they could even just go Assassin's Jacket and just go invis, and then suddenly your E just not working anymore. And another big factor that if you're from EU, you'll know this, where you'll press your, like, especially in ganking, you'll dash, press your E, and because of the desync, you'll hit your E, but they'll keep running. And that's only something that most EU players or people with high ping will know. That really sucks, and one of the reasons why I wish this was on EU servers. But anyways, on to the next. We have old Bloodletter. Now, I've been seeing a lot of Bloodletter players, especially streamers, using this in the Mist. And to be fair, it's actually pretty strong, because all you have to do is get your opponent down to like around 30-20% of their health to get that execute. I know it's at 40, but sometimes that execute isn't enough to actually kill them at that much health, so you have to bring it just a little bit lower. But that's what makes it so strong. It's like, and you can have an offhand with it as well, which definitely helps a lot. So I think I'm gonna place this around B or C, probably a B. I placed it in C before, but I think it's a B because honestly, like, if you just, all you have to do is get your opponent's health low and you're just boom execute. And it's kind of like a rush build where you're trying to like kill your opponent or get your opponent's health down as fast as possible and just trying to like execute them. And also you have a lot of mobility as well, so like if something goes wrong, it's like you have so much escape potential. it's pretty crazy. Pretty strong weapon. I don't know if it's like all the way up here strong, because it is pretty weak, and you can I don't know, there's stuff like fire staffs that just put a firewall and then suddenly you're not really getting anywhere. On to the next, Demon Fang. I don't know, Demon Fang, it was like, it's a cool idea, but when I played it, it really wasn't great at all, because you don't have that burst damage, and I don't know, it just didn't, it felt underwhelming. Like you would think that you charge up your stacks and then hit like a bunch of E's and it would do like massive amount of damage, but it really didn't feel that great. And next up we have the Death Givers. Now this thing, for me personally, is definitely up here. I don't know if it's S tier because S tier just means you just beat everything. But it definitely had like it was very strong. Like obviously you have the same ability as like the Bloodletter, and there's some really fun builds. And if you want to go back and watch my series on the Death Givers, I was using like Assassin's Jacket. I was using like a bunch of stealth tools, and it's basically like and the what is it called? I need to look that up real quick. What is that ability called? Assassin Spirit, basically. So with Assassin Spirit and the Death Givers and like I said the Assassin Jacket, you're just like you just stack up three of your three charges, E, disengage, and then like charge up another three, E, and you kept doing that over and over again while they're not able to hit you because you're like invis for like 1 second after you do your E, and you basically just cheese it like that. So I mean, it's definitely pretty high up there for me. And for these poor little bridled fury right here, this thing's definitely F. It's fun because you have like little like kind of an escape like Eve, Evelyn. I mean, an Evelyn ulti where it's just you know do some decent damage and back off. Even the damage isn't that great. That's definitely going F because that was probably one of the worst dagger weapons I played with. Now that's it for the daggers for now, but this isn't like the permanent right here. Like I might still change these afterwards. Alrighty then. Now on to the crossbows. So this thing right here definitely going to F. I know there's some like one-shot builds you could do with this, but in the corrupted dungeon, it's really hard to pull off because they have to be like dumb as a fucking brick for it to work. And there's so many tools now where you can just get stunned while you're charging your E. I know some people use like the mage rope or whatever to make it like a faster casting time, but I feel like even if you pull it off, it's not enough damage to one shot somebody, and then it's a pretty long cooldown. And I don't think I was ever able to pull it off actually. I don't know if I ever actually managed to land the E. And if I was fighting someone who had this, you know, it's so easy just to press like a I don't know, like a dodge roll at the perfect timing, or you just pop a Hunter Hood, or any kind of like resistances while they use this, and you're probably not going to get one shotted. But I think this weapon just like it's too predictable to react to their E because it takes so long to charge, and even then you have to do it in a specific way if you want to one shot them with like the armor piercing and all that. But yeah, no, that was going to F. Now, for probably one of my favorite weapons, the light crossbow. I think this one's definitely going up there to around B or A. I think it's going to be A because if you look right now on Murder Ledger, one of the highest win rate weapons, even though it's only around like 100 times it's been played, is basically the light crossbow with the life root. And yeah, I can see why. This thing's pretty sick. Nothing more to say about that. The only disadvantage, though, I would say with this weapon, the reason why it's not S is because it lacks mobility and chasing people. But if you're being chased, you can drop down like the traps or use it as the knockback. So it does have like a good escape potential, but chasing people not as much. Unless you're like running through mobs, then you can like hit them with the caltrops and get a little speed boost. Next up is the heavy crossbow. Now this thing was actually kind of fun because you're just like poking them from really far away, doing some decent damage. But the same issue, it's hard to catch people. But the long range poke is always fun, like always cheesy too. If you're just like poking them from like off, almost like the very edge of your screen, and you're poking them. So that's gonna be a B for me. Now this one, the repeater, definitely F. So, I mean, like the crossbow. Don't get me wrong. Crossbows in general are pretty strong. Like they just the Q and W ability are pretty good. But the E on this thing is so fucking bad that no one ever stands in it. Like no one lands on it. And also there's like a little charge time. So when you put it down, it has to like it has like an activation period before you can actually step on it and explode. And I used this as much as possible when I was doing my Corrupted Dungeon series, and no one ever stepped on it. It was completely useless. Definitely F. Now Siege Bow, this one was a little bit more fun, but it was like kind of a memey fun. Let's see here. Where did I put this thing? I put it in D. I think that's a fair spot to put it. It's not as strong as the other two, but and it's like I said, the long range poke is always fun. But I don't know. It was like lacking damage, and after you use your E, it was a pretty decently long cooldown before you could use it again. And also, like if someone was melee and right in front of you, it was hard to land it. Maybe you hit one of the volleys, but after that, it wasn't really that great. I don't know if I mentioned this, but yeah, this entire thing is based off of my Corrupt Dungeon series. So it's basically just 1v1s, and it's budget edition, so it's basically 4.1 tier. And I don't know if there's anything else, but I don't know. Probably people are probably going to get mad at where I place these weapons, but you got to realize that it's based off personal experience. And obviously, like your enemies changes all the time. Like what you're fighting, you could fight something that you're good against multiple times and keep winning, but then you'll just find like another build that completely counters yours, and you lose. So I know there's a lot of things that go into these, but I'm trying to be as fair as I can with what I personally feel like these weapons are. Anyways, on to the next one, old bolt casters. This thing is definitely one of the more annoying things to fight. I know it is kind of easy to counter them. Like I've done it before, where you can like actually run away, like run out of the range of it so that it stops hitting you. But yeah, you kind of have to be in a far distance for it to stop hitting you, because sometimes I'll see it hitting me off screen against opponents. And the silence, if you see them shooting their silence, you should be able to dodge it. But with the, like I said, EU ping and all that, it's kind of hard to do because you have like 1 second less to react to someone using their silence towards you. But once you see it and you just move out of the way, that's gone. And they don't have that. And then all they have is like maybe they pop a cleric rope and then they use their E. But then you could use also your stuff as well. So I mean, but that's the thing. You have to have very specific items to counter this. You can't go Guardian Helmet because that thing will just melt right through that. And you could use the Hunter, but most of the time they're gonna wait for them to like hit you with their silence before they use their E. So it's like you can't use Hunter while being silent. So there's a lot of things that go into this. And I think that's why, like, the fact that this weapon makes you have to change your build or like change your spells, like especially your helmet to like maybe a purge CCs kind of thing. The fact that it does that, I think, is a pretty strong weapon. Definitely A tier because you see it way too much in Corrupted Dungeons. So obviously it's got to have something working for it, right? On to the next. Now this thing was also just kind of like memey fun, but it was definitely not worth playing because the beam was easy to just walk around. I know you can turn it, but it just doesn't turn fast enough. And if like that's like I said, if they're a melee and you're trying to hit them with the beam, it doesn't work. Now there is a one shot build that exists where you have like but you have to use the cape with the snare, and you basically just do a one shot. But like I said, this is budget with a normal cape. No, yeah, I forgot to mention that. There's no special capes. It's all like flat 4.1 normal cape. No special like faction capes. Because these builds are like around like 50 to 100k. So no faction cape. So this thing, because of that, it's pretty low down here. Alright. On to the next. So, for the swords. The broadsword, I really didn't have a fun time playing. It was pretty bad for me when I tried it out. Like, I mean, okay, yeah. Another thing I should mention with the swords is that when I did my series, it was before the huge buff the swords where the Q had a leap attached to it now. This is when so I'm judging this based on before they had the leap attached to these weapons. So some of these are going to be placed a little bit lower than what they would be now, because now that they have like a lot of more mobility, they are definitely a higher tier than before. But just for the sake of this video and explaining it, I'm doing this based off like before that huge buff. So most of these swords aren't going to be as high up. So yeah, broadsword definitely way down here. It just lacks damage. It lacks I don't know. Yeah, I think it's just mostly that. It just lacks damage. The interrupt is nice, and the fact that you can have it offhand is nice as well. But you don't ever really see this weapon, and I can see why. Now for the great sword, this thing is definitely up here because the like I said, it's just the gap closing ability. Like it is pretty insane. It was like one of the weapons you would use if you wanted to catch like those like frost users. Anybody that's really like has a hiding build, you could just use this. Like this with like the splitting slash, which is such great like anti mobility, I guess you could call it, and like gap closing. That was pretty good. But the problem is that your escape, if you're here like you're going into like a bad trade, you have like very little escape unless you have like your 3 stacks of heroic charge, which gives you a little bit of movement speed. But it was pretty bad, and like in an escape sense. But in terms of like bursting someone down, it was a lot like the bloodletter, where you just go in and you charge in, and you just build up your stacks, and as soon as your E comes back up, you just smack them again with like 3 stacks, and that's pretty much an execute. And there was a lot of like burst builds with this that were like pretty insane. So that's going up to B. Now, something that's just a slightly higher tier than that is definitely dual swords. Like this thing, even before the buff, this thing was insane. The splitting slash into the E, and then you just like empowered auto attacks. I think I don't really remember exactly when, but I think it was after like the nerf for the claws. I started using swords, and dual swords was probably like my favorite one in there. And through the whole ordeal, I was definitely winning a lot with this thing back in the day. Oh boy, on to the next. Clarent Blade. I don't know. This weapon was like kind of. It's also one of those cheesy fun weapons. Um, where would I put it though? On my tier list that I did here before, I put it down in F, but I don't think it's F tier like specifically. Maybe like E, because it does have some cheesy fun stuff you can do to it. Like you do splitting slash, and then just hit them with your E, and you basically just kite them, kind of like what you would do with the curse staffs, where you would just build up your stacks and then run away and have like the damage over time to slowly whittle them down. It's kind of the same idea where you're just running away and throwing your E's at them because it has such a big AoE and long range. Broadsword, or no, the cleaver. Cleaver, it's one of those things. Like I said, I see a lot of people using it. At one point, a lot of people were using it and missed, but I think it kind of fell off. I don't know. I don't know how it is after the buff though, but I don't know. It was kind of mid for me. I was never really good at this weapon. I'm sure someone else could be a lot better at it than me, but I never really got the point of this weapon. So I'm putting it in D. It does have like nice damage. The fact that you like shred armor resistances as well is really nice. But I don't know. I kind of struggle with this. It does have mobility too, which is cool. But I don't know. In terms of personal experience, I never had a strong win rate with this weapon. And now for the Galatine pair. Oh boy, this thing was, yeah, that's definitely going to F tier. I know it's really strong in like ZVZ settings, but in a 1v1, unless they like for some odd reason stand next to you while you're casting it, or maybe you hit like a splitting edge right before you cast it. But yeah, this thing was way too slow to actually hit somebody with, and yeah, it was not really fun, and it was very lacking for me. Same thing with the Kingmaker, actually. This thing, I didn't really have a good experience with Kingmaker, even though it is really strong. Like the knock up and the slam, like it's a CC with massive damage. But for some reason, when I played it, I think it was the mobility issue. I think that's what made this weapon really low tier for me when I used it, was the fact that it had like no mobility. The only snare you had with was like splitting slash if you were using it, and I think that's why it's so low tier here. But with the new patch, this thing is definitely would be a lot higher up. But that's going to be it for the swords. Over to the bows. Now, I'm probably going to lose my voice before I end this. I can already feel it. Alright, now for the bows. These are all pretty strong weapons. They're all going to be, like, definitely up here because it has that mobility, it has damage, it has, kite ability, a pretty strong kite utility as well. So, I believe this was definitely A tier for me. It's just, it was insane. I think the nerf, though, where it does less damage if you're, like, right up next to him, I think that might be an issue because now that the swords can stick to you like glue, it's a lot harder for them to get away. So, but this is like before before the sword up the. So this thing was definitely way up here. Let's see, war bow. It was definitely a B because it's not as much damage as this, especially with everything being like a what is it, auto target or whatever, and the war bows ease a skill shot. And something I did a lot versus war bows is every time I see them cast their E, just pop your Hunter Hood, reflect a bunch of damage right back at them. The only thing that makes these things like crazy weapons is just the frost shot. Like if you're a melee and you're going against bows, these things would probably just shred you. And even if you're like a mage, they were just kiting you and just if you were chasing them, it was a lot easier to just lightly hit the warbow E, and this thing was just out damaging everybody. On to the next longbow. Now this one, the range of the E makes it a little bit more interesting, but the fact that you have to hold the attack while you're doing it kind of sucked, and people would just like walk out of it. It was kind of lacking in damage too, unless you were using like the enhanced arrows or whatever it was that increases your like ability, or it would like proc an ability damage thingy. But then you wouldn't have the frost shot, which you kind of really need, especially in corrupted dungeons where a lot of these are like kite meta heavy. So yeah, this one's an E for me. It could have been higher, but nah. Whispering bow. Now this thing's actually kind of insane. I don't know. I think it's pretty much even with this, but this thing's a little bit better just for the fact that you can hit people practically off your screen with this thing. And it's happened so many times to me where I'm running away from somebody and I'm still getting hit off screen. Kind of like with the bolt casters. Like the range of this thing's insane and extremely cheesy. And you like I said, because of the frost shot, they have a hard time catching up to them. And like if you have the passive with the like armor piercing, that does a lot for it as well. So it's a really great weapon. Let's see here. Next, I believe this is the wailing bow. This thing was kind of like here. It was like the E was a nice little poke tool, kind of like the war bow, but it was really like that was all you could really do with it. It was just poke them with that, and it didn't really do much. Then it was just the rest of it was just like normal fighting, and the normal the Q spamming and all that isn't that strong. So yeah, these are gonna be down here. Now for Baden. This one, I don't know. This one is either an S or an A. I think it's definitely S. I think Baden, like the damage of the E and the fact that it cancels like channeling and spells and all that is insanely strong. I know a lot of people will pop Hunter Hood when you hit them with the E, but yeah. And not only is it like insane damage, but the I don't know. It's just the whole kit. The fact that you can kite, you hit them with your E to do a bunch of damage. You also can clear mobs quite easily with the E with this as well. That's also something I don't mention with these weapons is that when you're doing corrupted dungeons, another important factor should be like your clear speeds. So that's why I mean I don't factor into this because this is mostly for like PvP, but it's true that I should keep in mind like clear speeds is also like an important factor. Make like light crossbow a little bit higher up on the list here. I'll change the weapons based on like which one's like the better A tier weapon, but we'll just leave it normal for now. And another insanely cheesy weapon, this bad boy right here. This thing, I had a lot of fun with this weapon. Hitting the snare and then 3 E's in their face was so much damage. It was a lot of fun to use. But is it like A tier, B tier? I think it's more B because it was just. I think there was some counter ability to it. I don't know if I think you can reflect the damage. I'm not too sure about that, but I think you can reflect the damage, which makes it a little bit worse because it's kind of predictable after they shoot their first one. So there's a way to go around it. I think it had long cooldown too, so that's why it's down here. And I think that's it for that. We can move on over to the gloves. And now this one's going to be really fast. Let me show you this. A lot of people aren't going to agree with me, but I think this here, yep, yeah, you see where this is going. All this down here. Now, to be fair, there is like some really strong brawler gloves combos that you can do, but like I said before, this is 4.1 with a normal cape. And I know there's some like pretty. Oh, let's put an E. Fuck it. There's like the one shot combos that you don't see anymore because I believe it was nerfed. But I haven't seen this like the combo in a long time. But there was a point in time where you would see a lot of people using this with like a reset combo where they would just go in like the swift cut on the boots into like an E, and then with the punch. But I think they were using higher tier weapons as well. They would like hit you with the E. They would do like some kind of combo, like maybe a Q W E or a Q E combo, and then they would hit their cleric robe and the assassin to it to refresh their cooldowns and do it again. It was a pretty strong one shot of builds, but I don't know what happened if they got nerfed. I wasn't really paying too much attention to the brawler weapons, but you don't see it anymore, so I'm guessing it got nerfed to the ground. And yeah, that's why all these weapons are down here. Bracers, they should be a little bit higher because even I use them in Mist, especially because it has so much mobility. But the problem is that your E is so predictable that it makes the weapon like dog shit. Because as soon as they see you jump up, it's like, oh, Hunter Hood, and then you're like, well, I either int by jumping into them and hurting myself, or I jump away. And then there goes your E, that's gone, and then all your other abilities don't do any damage. So it has nice mobility, but damage is extremely lacking. Okay, and basically the same thing with all of these. Like they had some fun abilities, don't get me wrong, especially Hellfire Hands. But the fact that it's been so played out, people see it coming, and it's really hard to do your combo. And like I said, it's 4.1. You're not doing as much damage. You don't have like all the extra stuff around it to make this thing really insane. But on the other hand, the Avalonian gloves is definitely up here. I believe it's A tier. The purge on this thing is insane. The fact that it's like you have a lot of mobility, and you have access to like some of the more stronger hitting abilities, like the W that grabs them and punch them. Like the CC with some big damage right after, and the fact that your E knocks them up, which is a CC, and it's a purge, and it has big damage. And I'm glad they buffed this, because before, when you used your E, you would take the full, like if they had reflect on, you would take that full damage, but they changed it to where now it purges them before it applies the damage. So that was a big buff for this thing, and I think if you see this thing in the Mist or in the Corrupted Dungeons, you're gonna have a pretty hard time. Because most of the people that play with this thing are like fully builded out too. Even if you're not like fully decked out. In 4.1, this thing was insane. With like just a normal cape as well. Let's see, and that's it for the gloves. That one was pretty quick. I'm gonna take a quick break, and I'll be right back. Alrighty then. Alright. For you guys, it'll be an instant, but yeah, gotta like try and space this out. I might like save probably do up to maces or something, or even curse. Probably up to the maces, and then like take a break, do the rest of it tomorrow. But for you guys, it'll all be one video. So I don't know. It's kind of a hard decision. I think I'll drop this down to a B, because it's true that in terms of like if you're fully geared out, it's pretty like S tier or A tier. But the fact that it's actually 4.1 brings it down just a little bit. Now that I think about it. But anyways, now for the old axes. This thing, definitely S tier. It's one of the weapons a lot of people will recommend new players play, because it has so much sustain, especially. But I don't know what it is with these axes. But you can also cheese the shit out of people with it, where you're just like E spamming. Well, not really E spamming, but you know, you start the fight by hitting them with your E, and you've already got the advantage. And I've seen so many people just like you do like the dash abilities to kite them and just throw your E back at them. It's just an insane weapon. Pretty fun. You're gonna get a pretty high win rate with this. And that's all I gotta say about that. Now for the Great Axe. This one's a little bit harder to place because when I went back and I watched my video, I did get a decent amount of kills with this thing, but I just don't think it's that great of a weapon. It lacks mobility. It lacks mobility. The burst is pretty fun, but like most weapons, it's kind of like predictable. As soon as you start spinning, they could hit like a hunter or a cleric, and there goes all your damage. And like after your combo, it had like a long cooldown, so you basically had nothing other than your auto attacks to really do anything. But the adrenaline plus the E combo is pretty fun for like mowing down people if they weren't ready for it. Let's see here. Old halberd, that thing's out of here. Carrion collar. I tried to have fun with this weapon where I would just kite people and throw my E, but the E did so little damage that it really just didn't feel like it did anything. Scythe. Now I saw people playing this weapon in Corrupted Dungeons and like in the Mist, like usual, for a short period of time, but I had really bad. I had a bad time with that weapon. I know it could be pretty strong, has like a nice execute and all that, but like usual, it's like you can get easily kited. And if you're using like your dash with the that reduces enemies like healing and all that, I feel like it lacked damage to even put them down to an executable range, pretty much. Okay, and for the bear paws, let me see where did I put this thing? I am legally blind. Where is it? I put it down at D. I can see that. Yeah, kind of like the same thing where it's like you have a really nice burst, like a nice entry to combat where you jump in, do a nice little burst damage. But I mean, the thing is, if you miss it, you're in so much shit. If you actually miss your E, but if you land it, it's like you have a really nice, like a strong start. But I feel like afterwards, that's where it falls off because you have I believe you have access to like the third Q ability, which is like a really strong like fighting ability, like a brawling ability, but. I don't know. I feel like it was really weak, in terms of everything else. It has nice mobility, like I said, and like you have to jump in burst damage, but I don't remember exactly why. I'd have to like go back and really watch the entirety of my video, but I don't think I had great success with this weapon. Also, it's expensive. I think that's probably one of the main issues was that it was expensive to run, especially because I'm mostly trying to judge these based on like, because the budget, the idea was that it was like around 50k to 100k, and I think even the Avalonian gloves are too expensive for it, which is something I forgot to mention. Realmbreaker, it was a nice E and all that, but like I said, a lot of it is just lack of mobility and damage, especially like you're fighting a bunch of ranged people, you're getting kited, and you're sitting there with one adrenaline rush maybe that gives you movement speed and your boots. It just feels like it lacks a little too much there. Okay, on to the next is the old fire staff. Where to put this thing? Definitely up here. Fire staff was one of those weapons that I would use to like farm silver like a couple months ago, maybe even like a year ago. I was just doing yeah, my voice is already leaving me. So I was just doing I think I even made videos on it actually. I'm pretty sure if I went back into my videos I would find videos of me doing just fire staff because it was so broken. Fire staff with the book, the tome as your offhands. And you were just like, if it was a melee person, you would just do like firewall and boom, they're like completely useless against you. Just firewall every time they get close, and you basically just won that fight. And as against other ranges, other range people. Like the roast, the fact that you do like your Q just is so spammable, and if you use that passive that after like 4 or 5 spells it increases your casting speed. It just turns this thing into like a fucking turret, and you're just like spamming Q and getting healing off your roast and all that. It was insanely strong, and this is definitely one of those weapons that I was using to farm a lot of silver in the budget series. Now, for the rest of the fire staffs, though, I'm gonna have to try and find these because I don't think all of them are that bad. Where did I place the great one? I think this one's F. Let me see if I can find it in here. Here, you guys can help me out and see how blind I am in here. Because, let's see, wildfire there. There's the Inferno. I don't see it. Am I blind? Yeah, I am. Okay, it's in D. That weapon definitely is not very recognizable. Where did I put it here? Now, the reason why it's in D was just because the pillar was kind of like a slow cast, but it did a decent amount of damage. And just fire staffs in general, like really strong. Like one of the main reasons why the fires are just so strong is just that Q spam. The Q spam does so much damage, and with the the faster casting and all that, it just becomes ridiculous how strong it is. It didn't like the E didn't even have to be there. It was still like a pretty strong weapon, but the fact the pillar did do a decent amount of damage too. Where is it? Alright, let's do the next one. This one, I actually placed this a little bit higher up in the C category, which it's about time I put some weapons in there. This one was the, I believe it's the one that had the fear. Like you would cast it and it would put like a fire under their feet, and it would also fear them for like a short second. But it really felt like no time at all. This thing was also just it was strong just because of that factor, like the Q spam factor, and the fact that it had like a miniature fear, I guess you'd say, like a nice little interrupt was really nice. And like I said, against most melee weapons, this thing just firewall, boom, they can't do anything. If they shadow the edge over it, there's like other ways to play around that. But yeah, so yeah, that's it for that one. Wildfire. You would think I'd put it up here with this because it is also pretty insane damage, but I think it's gonna stick to A, because the one thing that makes this not an S tier weapon is just the fact that the meatball can be kind of slow and sometimes hard to hit. So I mean that's why it's not an S tier. But other than that, like this thing's insane. Like one of my favorite clips of the wildfire staff is just, I believe it was one who died to he was like an 8.3 or something, and he died to like a 6.1 wildfire staff, just because the damage is absurd on this weapon. So yeah, pretty nice. Now for the rest of these fire staff weapons, these are all probably going to be down here in F tier. Just it was yeah, it's too slow. It's like either too slow to cast, or it was just absolutely useless. But there was some people had some cool suggestions though, where there was like a boot where you could swap places, so you'd cast it on yourself and then you would like swap places. But even then, like I felt like it wasn't really I didn't try it, but it wasn't worth doing. And plus it's supposed to be budget, so scholar shoes and all that nonsense, very cheap stuff, so I really couldn't do it. But I could see like it could be fun. Like a lot of this stuff here could be really fun and really powerful if you're using like a very specific build for it. But then you have to start investing silver. And this is mostly just like, the most cheapest of silver to make, like the lowest amount spent to make more silver pretty much, so that you're making profit. Except for Baton. Batten's actually pretty expensive, but it's strong enough that you're going to be winning a lot of money regardless. Okay, let's do nature now. I'll probably do the entire list. We'll see. Okay, nature. So nature weapons are, I think, extremely strong. But, well, I guess not all of them, but some of the ones, like especially the wild nature and the druidic one, and even blight staff, they have like a pretty decent healing. So that it really just like the sustainability in these weapons are pretty high up there. But anyways, let's start with the first one. So the old one-handed nature staff. Um, I don't know. This one was pretty low for me because it didn't really heal you that much. But the three thorn stack E snare was interesting, but it lacks, like I said, it lacks that healing. Like the damage on the thorns is really nice, especially in PVE. Like don't get me wrong. Like in PVE, the nature weapons are like pretty sick, but the sustain on it is like just not there. So I'm gonna put it down here. Next up, the Great Nature. Great Nature was E. So the thing with Great Nature is that if your opponent doesn't know what they're doing and you activate your E, basically every time you get hit, you're healed while you have the E active. But it's extremely visible when it's on you, and most people in Corrupted Dungeons have experience in like a PvP, and as soon as they see this, they're not going to hit you while you have it on. So basically, you don't get any healing from it. The only reason why I'm putting an E is because if you fight someone who doesn't know what they're doing, then it's a really strong weapon. But if they know what they're doing, then this thing is, yeah, not that great. Now for the wild nature staff. This one's A tier for me. I know people probably wouldn't place it as high as I did, but when I did my Corrupted Dungeon series with this weapon, it was just it's so strong. Like basically it's just the E is an AoE healing, but it heals a decent amount. So basically what you would do in a fight was just you would put it under you and you would just like do your normal thorn spam under the opponent, hit them up with the line of thorns thingy majig, which does a decent amount of damage as well. You would just get healed so much from your E that it was an insanely fun weapon and pretty cheesy. The only problem though is that you can't chase anybody. You have no mobility skills. And I tried using the passive that increases your movement speed after like 4 or 6. I think 6 casts. I believe it's 6 casts. It'll increase your movement speed by 20% or something, which is absolutely nothing, and it's just not worth having. So that's the one bad thing about this. But if you manage to survive long enough and the bats start to spawn and your opponent is just running, then there's a good chance you'll be able to catch up eventually. But I think it's just that you can't really, if you play it well, you can't really beat this weapon. Let's see here. Next up, Druidic. I don't like this weapon as much. I know some people show some like pretty crazy videos of them healing up with it, but it's not. I'm not a fan of it as much. The healing, it's kind of good. I think it's like 400, around like 400 health. You can get healed from it, but you get more if you're like lower health. And you can also like recast it to make it go faster. But I don't know. I didn't really like this one as much. But I mean, if you manage to get away and heal off, it's cool. But like the same problem with the wild nature is that you have like almost no mobility with this, so you can't really escape to heal yourself. So yeah, I don't know. This one's definitely not as strong. I'd probably drop it down to a D even, because it's just, yeah, it's better than the Great Nature for sure, but not as great as the rest. Blight Staff. Now this thing, I originally placed this down pretty low. Let me see. I put it down in E in my tier list. So if I go back to here, it's all the way down here in the E section. But I played it again today, and I realized this thing's actually really strong. Maybe these things are like both up here in B. I don't know if it was really A, but yeah, definitely a B, because the healing on these weapons is insane, and the Blight Staff also has a mobility, like increased movement speed added to it. So not only are you running away and healing like a decent amount of your health, but you have that mobility, so you're going a little bit further away from your opponent. So I think Blight has like one of the most annoying heals, because they're just running away and healing while you're chasing them. And also you could kind of use it to chase your opponent. while just getting back to full health while chasing your opponent, which is nice. So this thing's definitely up there. I think it is definitely better than the wild, just for that. What else do we have? Yeah, the rest of these nature weapons are going down, way down in the trash can, because yeah, they're just it's cool for ZVZ stuff, but definitely not for corrupted dungeons. Sadly. And I guess that's it for nature, to be honest. Alright, on to the next one. I think I might actually be able to do the entire thing without losing my voice. Excuse me. Alright. So for the maces. I think this is also a pretty simple decision. All the old down here. Because like I said, way back at the start, it's a 4.1 build with a default cape, with a normal cape. I mean, so it really just lacks in every fucking category with this thing. It has the snare jump is cool for like mobility because you can stop people from running away, but you just lack damage. There's just no damage behind this weapon at all, and that's why the majority of these weapons are just all down here. It just lacks damage. The the bedrock was fun, especially if you set up around like traps and stuff. But the I guess you could say like the trap meta really doesn't exist anymore. I have not seen it in a long time. Because there used to be a time where people would just play around traps all the time, and that was the only way they won. Is just get you to step on a trap. But yeah, there's no way you're winning a fight. Most of the time, there's no way you're winning a fight with these things unless you play around traps and actually manage to get them hit by it. Then I could see you winning with it. Incubus Maze, the same thing, just lacks damage. It's a nice E though, a nice E ability and all that, but you're just not gonna be winning. Same with this thing. But Oathkeeper, on the other hand, this thing was actually pretty fucking strong. I think it's a B. Yeah, B, because I think I had a pretty high win rate with it, and you may not do as much damage, but the fact that you have a massive shield when you use your E is pretty cool. And I mean, also you have like the snare charge as well, which is nice little mobility as well, and stop people from sprinting away. So that's pretty strong. Yeah, I guess that's it for the maces. I mean, that thing was pretty quick. Curse staffs. Now, I've seen it a lot recently. Where I think curse staffs are just like they probably got nerfed to the ground. They used to be really strong, but not anymore. Especially since I started running Guardian more often. If you run a Cleric or Guardian, then you can just counter a Curse Staff pretty hard. But they're still pretty strong. Let me see, where did I put this on my thingy here? So many icons, it's hard to find. I think yeah, I put it in C. So yeah, I put it in C because what I've seen is there's a lot of counter to this, and especially like if you, let's say with every single boots you have like a dodge roll. You have the dodge roll ability on it. If you see a curse staff, you could also like switch over to dodge roll if you don't have like a guardian helmet or like a cleric robe to avoid the E damage. You can just get dodge roll and just time it. You have to time it perfectly, which is not easy to do sometimes. But when you do time it perfectly, it's just like a great counter to the E burst on this thing. But I mean, that's why I'm putting it at C, because like sure, like, with my logic, yeah, you can easily counter it, but if you don't have a counter to it, it's really strong. This thing will shred you. Let's see here for Great Curse. I put this in E, but nah, I think this going down to F. Let's see here. Another weapon I put here in C was the other. What is this thing called? I need to like be a little bit more professional about that. Where are we? I'm like so far on the list. I have to find it. Demonic staff. That is what it's called. Good old demonic staff. So this thing, I believe it's the one with the fear. So yeah, the fear was insane on this thing, and it's really annoying. And I think in one of my fights is like a memorable fight was the one where I'm chasing somebody and I'm just getting feared into traps, and it makes it really hard to catch this the people using this weapon because they mostly it's mostly a kiting build where you just like you stack your dots on somebody and then you just run away. If they get close, you just use your fear to make them run in the opposite direction. So it's really annoying fighting this weapon and trying to catch up to them. But to be honest, yeah, maybe a B actually. Might be a little bit stronger than this because this like you don't have any mobility. You have a nice snare and some nice burst damage, but you don't have mobility. This thing has like anti mobility even. So I'm gonna put that actually in B. I don't know. It's hard. Like some of these, I'm very split on. Like some of them should be higher. Like this, like maybe if I was a better player with it and I had more like a better experience, this thing would be higher. But we'll just go with it. We'll just go with it. So where am I? Life curse staff. I believe this is the one with the purge, which purges are pretty strong, but I don't think I had much success with this weapon. It's probably yeah. It's also one of like the most disliked videos too. Well, not the most disliked, but compared to the other curse staffs, this one has a lot of dislikes to it. So I think I might have been pretty bad with this one. Um, and I just yeah I fought someone who was using it and he had like I mean the fact that you could just purge someone's ability like I don't know a shield or something makes this thing really strong, but I don't know if it's as strong as the rest because like I said it lacks mobility unless you yeah actually that's one of the things you could purge someone's sprints if you're close enough and you see them sprinting you can actually if you're fast enough you can actually purge their sprints before they get away, which actually does make it pretty strong. But where I don't know, because you're still relying on your Q dots to do a lot of damage. That's the thing. I think I'll just stick to C with that. And now for the Curse Skull. Curse Skull, I don't. I mean, I kind of see why this thing is meta, but I really don't get it because it's like the whole idea is you basically just mercenary jack with the mercenary jacket. You just snare them and have your E just go over them. And I know it fills up your mercenary jacket, like it gets those stacks up pretty, like it gets that healing pretty fast. But then, other than that, you can counter that though with a cleric robe. As soon as they cast their E, you just cleric robe, and now they're not getting healed, and you're not taking any damage. So that's kind of a rough one for me. I think it's gonna be a D because it's not as strong as these. But I don't know. It's kind of hard because it is a decent weapon, but in the scenarios that I'm thinking in my head, it's like it's easily countered, and I don't think I had a great. Um, I don't think I had a great time with this weapon either, or that many wins with it. Let's see. What is this? The Damnation Staff. Yep, down there into the trash can, and I believe the Shadow Caller was also down here. I think I had some decent ones with this thing, but I don't think it's just not strong enough to be up here, and I think it's expensive, more expensive than it was worth. I don't know that. I think it was just not that great of a weapon. Anyways, Jesus Christ, dude! Every time I play something, I always feel like there's so many things that I'm like there's scenarios in my head where like yeah it's good in this, but then it's bad in that kind of thing. And also ignore these. These are just here because they're like old stuff. But anyways, let's move on to the spears. Spears were pretty strong. I don't know exactly where I placed them though. This one, the first spear here, I believe it was D for me. It has nice mobility, and the you'll see a lot of builds that are using one hand spear have like just like a full reflect build. But I don't believe you have the reflectability in a 4.1 spear. Let me see that actually. Let me just check real quick to see if you have reflect unlocked on this on the tier 1 spear. No, you don't. Yeah, so that's why this thing's a little bit lower than it should be. If it was a higher tier weapon, I believe tier 5 or tier 6, I believe you would have the reflectability, which is like one of the most annoying spear builds. It's just full reflex with the Inferno Shield. But because it doesn't have that, and it's a 4.1 spear, it's definitely a lot lower down the bar than it should be. Okay, let's see here. And for the other spears, I believe they're a little bit higher up because these are like these are both in C. These two here right here because they're it was just a fun burst build like for yeah, burst where you would just like you would do your whatever charging ability that gives you like more damage and more movement speed for after charging for a while. Like the burst damage was insane. And I mean, it's extra mobility and use like the huge slaps, and I think I was also using like spirit charge for auto attack, which does a lot of damage too. And I think I just had like a great time with these weapons. And they were kind of very similar. This one just does the same thing, but puts them behind you, which was fun. If you were like right behind a trap or something, you could do something fun with that. But yeah, I think these were just like fun burst weapons. And with a spirit, like you just have the spirit charge thingies. I don't, is that what it's called? Spirit charge or whatever. You just have like you would use the ability that like every time you press Q, it would just add a charge, and then you would just do like a full three stack charge E for the big claps on people, which was all really fun. Heron spear. Where did I put this thing? Yeah, that's definitely an E weapon. The stun is like nice for disengage or to like engage. It's a nice little thing to hit people with, but it just lacks damage. You could do like a popular build, I guess, kind of, or in IDOs is like you run the Heron Spear with like soldier armor with the Force of Spears ability, which is like the AOE like poking ability, and you just get full stacks of soldier armor, hit them with your stun with the E stun, and then hit them with the Force of Spears, and it usually shreds people. I've seen it in the arena. It was pretty nice in arena, just like a full, get a full team stun with the Force of Spears hitting everybody. It just shreds them. Let's see here. Spirit Hunter down here. F. It was just lacking in damage, and E impackability, like the E impact was pretty low. Let's see here. Heron Spear. I actually had a lot of fun with this. I don't know where exactly I would place it though. On my tier list, I'm gonna see if I can find it. I put it in A. I think that's a good spot for it. Because yeah, the E on this thing was insane. Like the increased like range. I believe the attack speed increase, movement increase. The fact that it snares, I think if you land it correctly, it snares the opponent as well. It's really strong, and most people will like pop like a cleric robe when they do it, which further increases your damage. If I think they only pop it when you pop Hunterhood though. Like you would pop your cleric when they do Hunterhood when they get snared, but it's like the Boltcaster. It's just like insane damage, really annoying to deal with, and the poke damage from the spears when you have like instead of having the Q with that poke, so you have the one that just builds up charges and gives you like a attack range. The damage on the thing is insane. Like getting poked by the thing is not fun, especially when you're melee. And now for something that was more controversial, is the the Daybreaker. I don't think a lot of people liked it when I said it was like the worst spear, because I played it and I was just getting shit on. But I mean, it's like the curse staff, like the life curse staff, where it's like the purge is really strong, but I mean, when I played it, I didn't have much success with it. But when other people play it against me, obviously most of the time they're actually playing proper builds with like a life root in their offhands. But in a situation where you're not using life root and you're mostly like I think I was using torch, it really didn't. It just felt extremely lacking. But I mean, the purge is insane though. If there's like a good ability for you to purge off an opponent, then it's great. But I think if they don't have something really worth purging, and I think they still out damage you in like the straight up fight. But I guess you could use it in a more like intelligent way where you use it to get away from fights. So I don't know. Maybe I played it wrong, but for me, I was pretty bad at this weapon. So I would normally place it a little bit lower just based off my performance with it. But because of the people weren't happy, I'll put it in C. Alrighty. Only what is that? Like six more weapons to go. Like weapon trees, I should say. So arcane. Boy, arcane. The same reasoning. The purge is really strong, but is it higher tier quality strong? I think it is. I think the fact that the Q does a lot of damage. Q with auto attacks. If you have the empowered auto attacks passive, it does a lot of damage. The thing is, you're really weak with this weapon, though. I feel like, but the fact that you can purge someone makes all the difference. Like, say you're fighting an opponent that has a mercenary jacket, and I think you would run mercenary with this. You definitely could win that trade because as soon as they pop mercenary, you just purge it, and then you use your own, and you have that much more health against your opponent. I think where it really lacks is mobility, because the only mobility you have is if you land the I'll call it the sword swing just for this. So whenever you do that, the swing with your W, you have to hit something in order to be able to like do a little blink. But if there's no one nearby, it really sucks because you can't really you don't have any way of catching anybody. So that's the one thing that brings it like down. Because if it had some kind of like better mobility, then sure it'd be a little bit higher. But because it doesn't, it just has like a lot of damage in the purge. I think I'm just gonna put it at C. Okay. For the rest of these weapons, I think most of them are going to be down here because the thing that made this one so strong is just the purge on the E. A lot of these aren't really that worth it. The Witchwork Staff, though, I believe it was. Let me see where I put this thing. I put in E because it's not a complete trash. The E, I know it's just an AoE, like kind of a CC, AoE CC, but with a little bit of damage attached to it, which made it kind of useful. I don't know. I had a lot of fun with this weapon. I also use this weapon in arena. This is a fun weapon for arena if you want to set up like a big combo. Use the royal helmet with the meteor that comes down and stuns. So you just E meteor helmet and then just swipe and then just let your teammates just do a full clap. Like, it's definitely a good clapping weapon, but Corrupted Dungeon's not as strong. But I think it had really nice damage, so I'm just gonna put that in E. And for the rest of these are all kind of just bad, not worth mentioning. Okay, let's see here. Now on to ye old hammers. Now for the hammers, it's kind of obvious where these are gonna go down here. A lot like the maces, it just lacks damage to be useful. The great hammer, on the other hand, there was a period of time where great hammers were like extremely meta with the old mage helmet, where it would apply a poison to your like auto attack. Back then, you would see a lot of great hammers, and it was so annoying to deal with because they had so much CC. They were just dashing and slowing you down and stunning you that they would just go in, do their damage, then get out, and you couldn't catch them because they had so much mobility. But you don't really see great hammers anymore. And I guess it's just because the mage helmets change. So they lack that damage they need for when they go in, which I think it was, yeah, I think I had that same experience where there was really no way for this thing to really be good. I mean, the polearm, it had that long, kind of a long range like stun thingy, but it's like you're like I said, some of these weapons, like if you're playing around traps, it's cool and all, but in the terms of like actual like fighting, if you were just like in an arena and just a 1-1 fight, this thing would definitely not win. Tome Hammer. This thing goes up to E. It's the same scenario where it's like it doesn't do any damage, but this thing's a lot easier to play around traps with, and it's, you know, it's a long range stun that stuns for a decent amount of time. So you could be really annoying with this thing, but you have to play around traps mostly. And Forge Hammers. This thing goes up to D. I like this thing, especially, like I said, in arena, but this is not an arena situation, but I used a lot of this in arena because it was pretty decent. But in Corrupted Dungeons, I thought it would be stronger because you're basically, like, it's basically having, like, a gig pot, like an extra gig pot, and then your E, like, it's a knock-up, a big damage knock-up, and you can use it multiple times. But, I don't know. I feel like even with the dash slow, that if you used the dash slow, you had decent mobility, but you were just kind of lacking damage after your E was done. If you didn't have like the assassin hood to like refresh the cooldown and bring it back up, well, after your E is done, that was pretty much like the time for them to go all in on you, and there was not much you could do. You just lacked damage. You lacked any sustain. Like, it was very lacking. Maybe if you had like an assassin jacket, you go stealth and wait for your cooldowns to go up, but I think it was just extremely lacking after your E is done. Now, for the Grove Gatekeeper, this one might be a little bit more surprised because, you know, you're like, oh, that one's a D, this one should be even worse, but Grove Keeper was actually really fun to use. This just, I don't know, I like the play style of it, where you just jump in, hit them with the stun, hit them with the I was using Stalker Jacket, and it was just have fun bursting them down. And if they had any kind of reflex, you would just dash away and just like wait for it to leave the combat and wait for everything to reset and go back in again. Like, I had a lot of fun with this, decent win rate with this too, but it was mostly me. I think if I didn't do as well, it would definitely be lower, but I had a lot of fun with that weapon. And for this thing down here, it was cool, like little spin to win, slam down ability, but it was lacking damage. Alright. Time for the Frost Staffs. Now this thing is, let me see where I place these. So, one-handed frost up here in C, I believe. Yep. So, I mean, not much to say about this, but like one of the most annoying kiting abilities, other than Frost Shot. Frost Shot and the blink on this is so annoying, especially if you're melee. The fact that it snares you, like the Frost Shot's a slow, but this thing's a straight up snare, and their E is also a snare. It's just so much. Like, it's really annoying to chase them, but chasing after somebody with this weapon is it's not as strong, but they could still catch you. Because if you, let's say you're like, I don't know, like a spear or something, or a sword, there's no, you don't have any like dashes or anything to like get you like to, you know, create a distance between these guys, so they'll catch you really easily. So if you have like a bad trade and you're trying to run away, these things will just catch you anyways. And the the reason why you're having a bad trade is because you're chasing them in the first place. So yeah, Frost Staff's just really fucking annoying to deal with. And the Greats, this thing is a little bit less because, I mean, the AoE, like the you could spam it twice. It's like decent AoE damage. It's pretty long range too. But I don't know actually. I placed it D here on my other on the tier list that I did before, but I think it actually is the same as a C, maybe even better. I just think I didn't have much of a great success rate with it because I think it's, I don't know, the build's kind of cheesy. I think I was using like Frost Lance as well or something like that. But the E on this has a pretty decent range, and it's you could use it twice. I think the reason why I placed it so low is because, after you use your first E, if they see it coming, they just pop Hunter Hood, and then you're not going to use your other E while they have Reflect on. So you can kind of counter it because they're going to do their other E right after the first one. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna put that down and see. I think it's strong, but not strong enough because it just after E and just Q spams, I think it just lacks damage after that. Let me see here. What is this beautiful weapon called? The Glacial Staff. Glacial Staff down here. I believe it's one of the storm abilities. Like there's two of them here that has like a little storm effect they do, and I believe it was just it did no damage or it was just too slow. Let's see, and the Hoarfrost. I don't know why they name it that. It's like one of the most weirdest names. This thing, it's a big snowball on their E, which was it's cool and all, but I wish it would like drag the enemies with it. Like they would go inside the snowball and be carried away with it. It would make this weapon even greater because it'd be like a kind of like the cursed E here, where they just makes them go in the opposite direction when they're chasing after you. But no, it doesn't do that. It's just damage. Icicle Staff was the same thing. It's a cool storm ability, and you can kind of like put yourself inside of it. So let's say you're fighting a melee person, they'd have to be inside your storm to do damage, but it's easily avoidable. Oop. Okay, Permafrost Prism. This thing is where did I put this on the tier list? This thing has to be pretty high up there, right? No, it's actually a D. I placed it in D before, but maybe I'll change that. This thing, the damage was nice, and it's like a stun as well. But I think they could pop. It's not really a stun. I think it's more of a snare because they could pop Retaliate while they're inside of it, and then like completely reflect all the damage back at you. I'm not too sure. I forget exactly if it's a stun or not, but I know this weapon was like really strong. It had like a lot of damage, and it was really great to use. And I forget why I had such a bad time with it. But yeah, I think okay, no, I remember now. I know why, because the E casting was really slow. Casting E took like a couple of seconds before it actually showed up, and that's why this thing was low. It was a lot lower than it should be. Just because the E was so slow that people could like walk out of it if they were sprinting or something. So yeah, that's why the thing's at D tier. Alright, Chill Hell. You know exactly where this thing's going. S tier. This thing was fucking so much fun. So broken to use. You have insane mobility. You have the Q span for just a little bit of fun poking from a long range, and then you have the E. It was the most annoying thing ever. I mean, if they had like a sprint or something, they could get out of it, but most of the time they get snared in, and it does a lot of damage too. And it was like one of the most annoying things, chasing somebody with this weapon. Like, let's just say you didn't have a sprint. Like, let's say you get all the way up to them, they just blink away, and then they just E behind them, and they're just stuck. And this thing was like, it's so strong, especially if you have a lot of room to kite around with, just run away. Then yeah, a lot of people when they see that weapon, they're just like, nope, other way. Because I believe you can have a. Actually, never mind. I was about to say I believe you could have an offhand with this thing, but I don't think you can. But anyways, omelet with this thing, annoying as fuck. Okay, and there's only 3 more weapons to go. Quarterstaffs. The first one here. Let's see where I placed it in here. I placed it in C. And the reason why is because this thing has. It's a lot like the double bladed, which, that's definitely going to be higher up. With the new Q, well, not the new Q, but old Q, this thing was pretty garbage weapon. With the new one with the little spinning attacks, this thing's a lot better. And the slam, it's a knockup, it's an interrupt, it's decent damage, it's mobility because it's kind of like a leap as well. So it's like it's a strong opener. You go in, you hit them up, you hit, you use your E, You knock them up, you do a decent amount of damage, and then you use your like, let's say you're using not the sprinting stun, but using the other sweeping attacks, the triple hit thingy that gives you more movement speed. Just knock them up, W, start spamming some Qs, and then you basically have already chunked off a big chunk of their health. So really strong opening weapon with some decent damage behind it. And you could also use Mercenary Jacket with the Q spam because it'll proc all your heals pretty fast. But as for all the other ones, trash. The E on this thing was, I believe it's the spinning ability, which is just knocks people away, which is not what you want as a melee person, to knock people away. Unless you were trying to kite them, but this is not really a kiting weapon. And if you were using all your running, like sprinting abilities, you would have no damage behind this. So yeah, definitely all the way down here. Now, I guess this is like a very biased place to put this weapon, but double bladed is definitely S tier for me, especially in crowded dungeons. Like if you go back, watch like more of the recent videos, this thing was so strong. Just with a stalker jacket, just E stalker jacket, and I think I fought a decent amount of like bow users as well, and I was just like running them down with the stun run and just stalker jacket, Q spamming, and winning most of those fights against those annoying kite builds. This is probably like the one thing that could probably beat the chill howl. If you played it right. If you played it correctly, then I think this thing could definitely stop a chill howl. Let's see here. Black monk staff. I think I placed it in D, but maybe it's an E, because the E on this thing, it was I forget what it was. I think it reduced their damage by a certain percentage. So if the longer they stayed inside the E of this thing, which is basically a spinning blade that you toss down, it's like a spinning whatever staff that just reduces their damage. If you manage to land it, it's pretty cool, but I think it's easily dodged. Like they can easily just get out of it, so you don't get as much of the effect as you would wish. Unless you stun run E, that could be something you could do with this thing, but I don't think I had much success with this, so I think it's just E. Let's see here. Soul Scythe. I actually put this in C because you wouldn't think it, but this thing's actually really fun to use. That knockup is so like it's probably like one of the longer CCs in the game. That knockup with this thing, plus like the sweeping strikes or whatever. I don't have the names up right now, but the W that does the 3 hits. That you just knock them up, do the 3 hits, and then run away, and then just keep doing it. It's really strong. And then I had one in the situation where the guy was chasing me, and I timed it perfectly with like. It wasn't timed perfectly with the traps, but it was like right above the traps, where it's like he was chasing me. I knocked him up. Like I was pretending to run away, just turned around, hit the E, knocked him up, did my W swing, and he was dead because the W does a decent amount of damage. Like, yeah. It was probably one of the best moments I had with the Soul Scythe. Definitely a fun weapon. Definitely use it to kite and all that, but chasing it a little bit harder to do. This thing down here. I didn't even play this weapon correctly either because I was using Mercenary Jacket, but I kept forgetting to turn it off when I was using my Mercenary Jacket. So there was situations where I was like, I had my Mercenary Jacket on, but I wasn't getting healed because I had this thing on, the E on this thing. So yeah. Maybe it gets like a healer. Maybe it'd be interesting. No, this thing. I put it in D. Just for the fact that it's like, it's another one of those weapons. Maybe lower. I don't know. This thing actually has damage though. Unlike the, most of these that have like a stun that you could put, like you could play around traps. Like the Tome Hammer, you could play around traps. This thing's also something you could play around traps with. Because it has a very long range snare. It does some damage too, and you can use it twice. So I mean, if you play around traps, you could definitely set it up that way. And the reason why it's higher than the other ones is just because it does a lot more damage than these other weapons. So that's why I put it in D. Right, there's only 2 more weapons left to go. We're almost done. Okay, holy smokes. Yeah, okay. So let's just, get this out of the way. And then this thing up here. And then there. Okay, there you go. That was easy. I don't even have to explain it. Anyone who's played Corrupted Dungeons will know why this thing's all the way up here. It's like one of the most annoying things to face, especially if they're doing budget. It's just not as strong, but it's still extremely powerful weapon. The healing on this thing is ridiculous. Like I don't know, because I don't know if everyone knows this, but inside Corrupted Dungeons and in the Mist, healing staffs get like a 30% healing reduction. But it doesn't feel like it exists when you see this weapon, because what they'll do is they pair it with one of the W abilities that increases their healing. It gives them a little bit of armor resistances, and it increases their healing slightly. And they just use the E, and then boom, they're like full health because the healing is just fucking ridiculous on that thing. I don't even have to say anything much about that. But as for the rest of these, the healing's just a lot more lacking. I think the what was it? There was one holy staff I think that had like a decent heal to it. But I don't think it was worth it because the one big downfall a lot of the holy staffs was just the fact that you had your Q did decent damage, but for if you're like EU player like me with the EU ping, it was a little bit harder to land your Qs, and you were punished if you didn't land your Qs because when you land it, it decreases the cooldown slightly. If you did like 3 times in a row, it was like the max like cooldown reduction to the Q spam. But if you missed it, you know, it was just basically you had to wait. It was like 2 seconds or something for it to be able to cast again. It was just punishing if you didn't land our Qs. It was kind of hard to do as well, but you know that's more of like a me thing. And it was just lacking in damage in general. Like these didn't have as much healing potential as well, which is something that you know a lot of these weapons, a lot of the healing weapons lacked. Was just the self healing was so bad it wasn't worth it. There's not enough sustain in there compared to these. How much they heal you. Okay, that was quick. So now, to end it off with the Yield Shapeshifters. Let's see where I place these. So, this thing... I originally placed it in A, but I think I'm just going to go down to B with this thing. Because I played it... And this is another weapon that I played today, and I was kind of disappointed in the damage and the PvE clearing speed as well. Even though it's not really a factor of this, but... It's pretty strong. Like, Shapeshifter staffs are just really annoying in general, but... I think the counter like the counter ability to your E like execute is it's super obvious because after you've done your first dash, most people will prop their hunter hood if they have it or some kind of like counter cleric maybe so that you can't execute them. I mean you can just pop out and just keep hitting your like your human form spells, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't have as great as a time as I thought it was. It's not as broken as you would think it is compared to the roots. Now this thing, I think it has decent sustainability, like a lot of the nature weapons that I have here, and the fact that you could switch to human form and do a lot of damage makes it a little bit stronger than the nature weapons. Like it's definitely if you were like using this versus one of these nature weapons, you would definitely you'd probably win just from like your damage output alone and self healing you can do. And then of course the bear. I placed this in S tier, but I mean the only reason I placed it in S tier is because a lot of the fights that when I first started doing the Corrupted Dungeon series, a lot of the fights was against bears, and these things were like so broken. But I think they've been nerfed a lot since then, and I don't know. When I played it, it's not as strong, especially since I was using a budget build. It's not as strong, but it's still like it's kind of like the mobility on this thing is like broken. The roar CC like the roar into like the stun, like the AoE stun in front of it, kind of it was just like a ridiculous kit basically on the bear. So I don't know, maybe it's not S because it has been nerfed over and over again, but it's still like really strong. It's definitely A. And for the blood moon staff, the werewolf, I think it's a C. It's not as strong as the Panther, but it has like some decent sustain to it if you like, stand on the blood pools. But it was kind of The thing is, I only did one match with this thing. I think it's maybe a lot stronger than I'm placing it. Maybe B even. Yeah, because the one match I did with it, I ended up dying. But the thing is, he had a very strong start to that fight, and I was able to survive for so long off very little health because of the sustainability on this thing is really strong. I think if I had played it a little bit more, I think I would have liked it, or I would have placed it higher. But the thing is, also something to keep in mind with a lot of shapeshifter weapons is that these are all expensive. Like these three, not as expensive, under 100k. But once you get to like the werewolf and all the rest of these, yeah, these are like way too expensive to be really worth running. So next one is the bat. I put this in D. It has some nice, I'd say some nice counter, like not counter, but some like plays you can do with this thing. So with one of the abilities when you're in the bat form is like a fireball that you can like switch positions to and make it explode. It's like it has a lot of damage. The revive, I don't think the revive is as interesting as most people make it out to be, but the damage on this thing can be insane. And what I've seen, like, you can't do this in 4.1 because you don't have the ability unlocked, or maybe I just don't have the level for it. But what I see most people do is they'll have the ability that transform you into like to morph you into like a, I don't know, a squirrel or something. What they'll do is they'll hit you with that. They'll switch over to bat form, and then they'll just hit you with their like the turret mode Q, the fireball spamming Q ability, and then they'll just burst you down because you can't do anything while being transformed, which is like a pretty strong combo to do. But as for the budget, I think it was it didn't really work out for me. I think it's a very squishy weapon for sure. But I mean, like I said, and one of the counterplays you could do this thing is because you can switch the place with your fireball. Let's say if someone's chasing you, you just put your fireball back like towards them as they're chasing you, and you keep running forward. And then once it's far away enough, you just you switch your position with it, and then you run the opposite direction. Yeah, like it happened to me once. Someone actually won a fight because they did this play, and it was pretty strong. But yeah, on to the next. The old, was it Earth Rune, I believe. But yeah, Earth Rune is what it's called. Earth Rune. This thing was actually really strong. I ended up beating. I think was it like a Death Giver? It was a dagger or some kind of weapon with this thing. And it's like this thing makes you so tanky that he did absolutely no damage. I had a hard time landing my abilities though with this thing. I'm gonna put it at C. Like it wasn't, you didn't do as much damage, but it definitely made you a lot tankier and a lot harder to deal with, and you could like just trap them inside your area to stop them from running away as well. And I think the biggest thing though is that I never really used this weapon before. Like I've maybe once in the past, but I've never used this thing, so I really had very little experience when I went to combat with it. I was missing a lot of my abilities. I was also like using it for the first time and being like, oh, that's what this does. So yeah, like that's actually the true for all of these, except for like the prowler. I did use this one a decent amount, but I never used the bear, the bat, the this thing, maybe a little bit more than the rest of these, other than prowling. But yeah, I never used the bear, the werewolf, all these, because when they came out, they were like way too expensive to play with, and then I just end up like stopped playing Albion for a while. So I never used them, and even now it's like now they're finally like affordable and relatively cheap, so I can actually use them, but I never used them in the past. And Lightcaller, I don't know, it's F or E. It's too squishy. It has some like some fun burst damage. The tactical nuke is always fun to watch, but and the beams on this thing are interesting, but yeah, you don't have mobility. You're like very squishy. I don't know. The fact that it's shapeshifter, I'm just gonna put E because you just have so much damage. You could pretty much shit on a lot of people. So yeah, there you have it. It's a pretty balanced tier list. especially like B, C, D, E. I wasn't expecting it to be so much more balanced though. This is what I originally had. Let me put this over here. So this is what I originally had the first time I went through the tier list. As I watched the video, or I watched some fights in my series to kind of like place these, and this is what I ended up with. But I ended up changing a lot of these. So yeah, there's my tier lists. Now, obviously, I could switch the position of these to make it like more accurate. Like this would be like a lower E. This would probably be like a little bit higher up here. Maybe this a little bit higher up. Yeah, I could swap the weapons around, but I think the ideal is just to place them in a category, so that you kind of get the idea of what I personally think in Corrupted Dungeons. What are some of the more stronger weapons? And I think most people will. I mean, everyone's got their own opinions on some of these weapons. I think some people will disagree. Like this should be higher, and I mean, I don't know. Like maybe some of the shapeshifter weapons up in the S tier, maybe. But I think this is what my tier list is. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully, it helps you, and feel free to try these out. If you don't have success with these, then just drop in the comments. Be like, man, your tier list is trash. But nah. But yeah, that's the thing. You got to keep in mind this tier list is based off of budget builds that I did. 4.1, no normal cape. No special capes, normal cape. And tier 7, tier 8 foods, of course, and then like tier 4 healing potions, not tier 6. And I don't ever really use poisons. So you got to keep all that in mind when I did these. And also another thing to keep in mind is that some of these weapons I've never played before, like I don't know, like the wailing bow and stuff like this. Like most of these weapons, that was like the first time I ever played them, so that was also probably a factor in these. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one. Enjoy the Mammoth.